What's up guys, it's the Cheapster here, back with another video, and man oh man, today do I have a good one for you. So it's no surprise that the face of gig work delivery companies like Grubhub, DoorDash and Uber Eats have been changing. They're all still very new companies working to find where they fit in this market, and with some companies growing much bigger and other companies dying out, it's really made me think about where delivery driving is going to be in the future. We already know self-driving cars are on the rise, and companies like Amazon and Walmart are already working super hard to push automated delivery forward so they can lower costs. Amazon has already even developed a delivery robot called Scout, and I do have to say that robot is cuter than me, so it's got me beat there. And with demand for delivered items on the rise, it only seems like it's a matter of time before we get replaced with things like robots. Might be cuter, but I bet I'm still a better driver. So in this video, I'm going to talk about some of the current issues in the delivery driving industry. I'm going to talk about how robots and AI are growing in capability in the workforce and what this all means for us as delivery drivers. So starting out, I want to talk about the current instability of the delivery driving gig work market. One of the biggest issues right now is that the price is too high for the customer and you get a lower quality product. Now, Drew Gooden did a video about how delivery apps screw over everyone. I did a response on that because he actually put a clip of my video in there, and I would say that video is very true. Especially as a customer, you really pay a premium for these deliveries. Even if you stiff your driver, you're still probably going to get your food cold and soggy and pay more for it. I guess I should say, especially if you stiff your driver, you're probably going to get your food cold and soggy. So as a customer, you pay a much higher price for the same item you could just go get yourself, and you get it in worse condition. Another issue with the industry is that the pay is too low for drivers, especially when having to use your own vehicles and having other expenses like that. Obviously, every area is different and every order is different, but as far as I'm seeing lately, most companies are lowering pay unless they're working to gain the market share of that region. Probably because the pay we were receiving as drivers at the beginning of doing these delivery apps was unsustainable for companies to continue to pay that out. Not to mention costs going up on items like gas and cars that have a real cost to the driver that lower the pay that you're actually making. It honestly seems that it's probably proving very difficult, if not impossible, to entice drivers enough to get them to come work for these delivery companies when it takes so much of one driver's time just to deliver one order. Especially when companies have to compete not only with each other, but also with the fact that other people could just go out and pick up their own order for free. And that brings me to the next issue, that pretty much all of these companies are still kind of struggling to make profit. Now, I know what you're probably saying here.
Who cares about the profits of these massive multinational enterprise quadrillion-dollar market cap syndicate conglomerate subsidiaries anyway?
Okay, that was just a string of big words I looked up on a synonym finder to try to impress you guys, but it did sound pretty cool, didn't it? But the companies not making much profit or losing money could signal an issue with the industry. And sure, most companies starting out do lose money in their first year, so it's not like this is something so weird to see. But considering that they're spending more money than they should be because they can't make profit, and still nobody's very happy with them, that's not a very good sign. It seems that the industry itself is having a problem in most of the country trying to find a balance between how much the customers are willing to pay for the items and how much drivers are willing to get paid to deliver the items. Which brings me to what possibly was the plan all along for some of these companies to build this interconnected web of delivery driving among cities, and that is driverless food delivery. Which brings me to my next topic, that robots and AI have really grown in capability over the past years. And I would say right now, the robotic and AI boom is pretty much here. We've had many booms in the past with agriculture, industrial, and most recently the technological boom. And I think there's no denying the fact that we are about to be or are already in the robotic boom. We've seen it on movies and TV shows for years, so it kind of seems goofy, but really when you think about it, robots really are doing a lot more of the jobs than they used to. And we have the technology to replace so many of today's jobs in the first place with robots. And slowly but surely, costs are coming down on those robots as companies start to adopt using them in their companies. I mean, for crying out loud, Amazon's warehouses are starting to look less like warehouses and more like a dance club for Roombas. You want to guess what type of music they play there? They play electronic. Sorry, that was bad. I should just leave. So you may be thinking all those automations are fine and all, but it's gonna be a while before cars are out there driving without drivers, right? Well, it's already happening actually. In Phoenix, Arizona, there's already a company called Waymo that's running a driverless taxi service. Not to mention pretty much every new car in the market today has some sort of automated driver functions. And now you might be saying, well, the public opinion on driverless cars is very negative, so there's no way that this is gonna happen. Well, That's already changing too. This graph that I totally didn't just pull off of Google image search shows that the public opinion of autonomous cars is usually becoming more positive year over year. Except for last year in China and India, where a lot of our computer parts come from. I'm sure that means nothing though, don't worry about that. Alright, so now we've seen some of the issues in the industry, some of the answers that may actually come to the industry that don't have to do with us as drivers. Now let's talk about what this all means for us as drivers. Now in all honesty, I have to say, this is kind of just the way of the economy, and for the robots, in the words of Thanos, they're just gonna say, I'm inevitable. The economy is constantly changing and evolving over time, and don't forget that these delivery gig jobs took over what used to be the normal restaurant to customer delivery jobs. It's just the nature of business to try to cut costs and gain more market share and more profit. And unfortunately, in this industry, I think the biggest cost is us as drivers. And it seems that the way to lower that cost to the companies is almost here. Now, I'm not saying whether this is a good thing or a bad thing. Really, all I'm saying is just that it's coming and you as a delivery driver should be prepared for it. So what does this actually mean for the future of delivery drivers? For the next few years, maybe up to the next 5 years, probably not much for most people. If you work in a smaller city, it may be years before anything actually impacts you as a delivery driver. Not to mention that we're having a shortage on microchips right now that will definitely slow down some of the movement of this. But for people working in larger cities, especially ones with really dense street traffic like LA and New York, you can expect to see companies like Uber Eats, DoorDash, and Grubhub, and possibly even new companies take over with autonomous delivery services. And I think slowly over time that will grow and eventually take over every city that has the demand for it. So I know as a delivery driver, this all may have seemed like bad news from here, but there is some good news that probably there still will be opportunities in the gig delivery market for you. And that could be things like it might be possible for you to rent out your autonomous car to go do deliveries for companies like DoorDash, Grubhub, and Uber Eats. Elon Musk even talked about this with his Teslas, and sure, it was kind of a sales tactic, but it could be possible that one day somebody wants to rent your Tesla to do work, or whatever self-driving car you have, and in the future maybe companies like Honda will really start to get into it and make that a lot cheaper to own a self-driving car. And honestly, maybe even Tesla will get into the delivery game. I mean, you never know what Elon Musk is going to do. And now, of course, that doesn't mean that using your car is going to make you the same amount that you make now, because the price will obviously come down when people aren't needed to actively be doing the deliveries. Or else what would be the point of building this all out for the companies anyway? And the reason that I truly do believe that there probably will be opportunities to get involved in the gig work delivery industry even when it's autonomous is that any company looking to get involved with autonomous food delivery in the future will be really fighting a major uphill battle, because it's going to be very hard to pay for all the equipment and service and maintenance of all those vehicles to try to get this to work. So I think that that probably means that companies would transition to their own driverless fleets slowly over time and possibly use freelancers with their own autonomous cars in the meantime until they build that up, which still means they're probably working you out of the job at some point, but it's just not going to come as soon as it may seem. And I do just want to say these are just my thoughts. It's not like this is fact, but this is just where I think I see the industry heading after working it for about 5 years. So I know all this information I just gave you probably seems pretty negative, but trust me, you just need to be looking for new industries and new ways that you can work in the gig work jobs. Gig work as we know it has been changing, and I believe it will grow a lot in the future, especially with the past few years with people working from home and remote jobs becoming so much bigger. I think all this stuff is really going to start to change. And as robotics and AI grow in the workforce, that makes room for other types of jobs. And those jobs will most likely be better than the jobs we're even working now. Probably more flexible work that actually gives more options to workers on what jobs they want to work anyway. Never forget that just about a century ago, a huge percentage of our population was working as farmers, working long hours just to live in a way that today we would consider pretty terrible living conditions. And machinery and technology advanced to push many of those farmers out of their jobs into other jobs and other industries. And I'm sure people were upset about losing their jobs back then too. But that paved the way for so much more high paying, more flexible jobs that we have today, as well as shorter work days and shorter work weeks. And sure, there's something good to be said about the personal growth that comes from a long, hard day's work at manual labor. And don't get me wrong, those jobs are still around today, trust me. And they pay pretty well because a lot of people don't want to do them. But the key here is that you don't get so caught up in the present work that you miss out on what jobs are going to come in the future, because it will come.
Whether you're ready or not.
This is starting to sound like a horror movie. But But thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully this video was helpful. Hopefully you can take away a positive spin from this, because I know a lot of this seems like it's negative, but trust me, the economy is always moving and there's always going to be more opportunities if you just continue to look for them. Nobody was working these type of gig work delivery jobs like this just a decade ago, so remember, things are always changing. But in the meantime, as I always say, make hay while the sun's shining. So if it's working well where you are, continue to do it until it's not. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys liked the video, remember to do the cheapest thing you can today. Tap that like button. Also subscribe to the channel for more stuff like this, and comment down below what you guys think is coming in the future. If you agree with me on this stuff, or if you think it's going to be different, or if you think it's not going to change. But thank you guys so much for watching, and remember, stay cheap.
Hey, you better be saving that money. Don't you be spending it now. You're still here watching this? You might as well just subscribe. Why would you not at this point?